Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to walk you through the informational content unit. So the project for this unit is that students will pretend that they work for a blog, and the creator of the blog has asked them to create some informational content that will appeal to teenagers. So the overview for the unit is that the first day that we'll do the Mastery Day overview, where we go through the expectations and what they need to do to be successful on Mastery Day. We'll spend a lot of time talking about the difference between informational, argumentative, and narrative content. They need to pick a topic to write about. We're going to review how to find reliable sources. We're going to research. We're going to do some friend feedback. We're going to add citations, and then we're going to have Mastery Day on the last day. So on the first day of the unit, we're going to do a warm-up, and this is the first time in the year that I have asked them to respond. So I'm going to spend some time telling them how to do that. So I'm going to give them this little handout here, and it has some things that they can write about if I ask them to respond. And you can cut these out and have them glue them in their notebook if you want to. But I'm just going to post a lot of stuff throughout the year just to expose them to different types of writing. And I want them to react to it in whatever way they want to. And these are just some ideas that they could use if they're stuck. But I just will post some informational content here, maybe a video or a short passage, something quick that they can react to, and I want them to write their reaction in their notebook. We'll do good news. And then this is also the first time that I have asked them to do some vocabulary. And so I'm going to explain to them how to do that. They're going to do it on this vocabulary note catcher, which is similar to a Frayer model, but it's in grid form. And then they write the word, the definition, characteristics of the word, examples, non-examples, and then they do a quick, really rough illustration to help them remember the word. And I feel like 3 words a day is plenty, but if you want to do less or more, that is totally good. So the daily objective is to identify the end goal and how to get there so they can be successful on Mastery Day. So I'm going to introduce to them the objective, which is on this slide here, and I'm going to show them their informational content guide, which is handout A, as well as the Mastery Day instructions and rubric, which is handout B. And for the first one, we're going to focus on the Mastery Day instructions, and I want them to put a question next to the things they're confused about and an exclamation point next to the things they are excited about. So that's just this first top part right here. And then I'm going to ask them, what are you confused about? What are you excited about? And then I'm going to have them look down here at the rubric, which is at the bottom of handout B. And the same thing, I want them to put a question next to the things they're confused about and an exclamation point next to the things that they are excited about. And we will talk about it. And I will go over this in greater detail on the board. We're going to talk about what approaching is, what satisfactory is, what proficient, and what mastery is. And we're going to talk about the differences between proficient and mastery, like what sets apart somebody who is proficient versus somebody who is a master at creating informational content. And I will take a lot of time to answer questions and make sure that they are totally clear on what the expectations are. And I will reiterate that I want them to be creative. I want them to do something that they care about. I want them to present it in a way that is fun and exciting for them. As long as they stay within these mastery parameters and they can do all of these things that the mastery is asking them to do, then they can present it in whatever way they want to. So just as a way to help kids who see things in kind of a checklist sort of way, we're going to turn this mastery part of the rubric into a checklist, and you can have them do this as a class, or you could simply show them the checklist that I have made, which is handout C, and you can cut this out and have them glue it into their notebook or staple it onto their rubric so they can have a checklist that will make it easier for them to see exactly what they have to do as opposed to reading it in paragraph form. That's totally optional. Use it if you think it would be helpful. And then we're going to dive deeper into mastery, and we're going to brain barf using the rubric. I want them to brain barf in their notebook what does this mastery actually look like? What do they think the best way to produce the information is at this point? Do you think it would be an essay, a video? What kind of images or clips would you use? And they have no idea what they're going to be writing about at this point, and that's totally okay. I just want them to explore where they are in their thinking about what mastery would actually look like. And then we can talk about it if you want to. And then here I'm going to put some different types of informational content on this slide so they can get a visual of what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm going to pick fun and exciting and engaging informational content that they would actually read, so they can realize like, oh, hey, this is actually going to be really fun. Informational content isn't boring. I could totally do this, and get them excited. Give them good stuff that they will probably care about. Then I want them to talk to each other about what we're doing during the unit and why we're doing it. And then I want them to write on handout A here at the top, what are we doing and why are we doing it? And then I want them to choose the norm for the unit. So I'm going to post the norms that they created as a class so they can see them and choose from them. And I want them to pick the best norm that will help them be successful for this unit. And then I want them to write what they think that will look like in action. I'm also going to spend some time going over these essential questions, which are on handout A. We don't have to answer them at this point. I'm just going to introduce them to them. And then just as a guiding question to really drive home the fact that we're writing informational content, not argumentative or narrative, I'm just going to ask them, what is informational content and how does it differ from argumentative and narrative? And I'm just going to hear their answers and just kind of gauge where they are, at what skill level they're at. And then I'm just quickly going to show them this at a glance thing that helps them see, oh, this is informational, this is argumentative, and this is narrative. And there is a handout on handout D that you can cut up and have them glue in their notebook just as a quick reference. And then I want them to put handouts A and B, their mastery day instructions and their guide, into section 1. And for their exit ticket, I want them to tell me one thing they're excited about for Mastery Day and one thing that they are dreading. And then I will use that to drive my instruction for the next couple of days. So the next day we're going to do the same warm-up. They're going to respond to something, some sort of informational content. We'll do good news and 3 vocabulary words. And the daily objective is to explain the differences and similarities between the different types of writing, so informational, argumentative, and narrative. And we're going to do stations. So the room will be divided into 3 different sections, an argumentative, narrative, and informational. And I'm going to have several different examples of each type of writing. And as the students go, I'm going to split them into 3 different groups, and they're going to be walking around carrying this note catcher. And as they read whatever section that they're in, say they're in the argumentative section, they'll read several different examples, and they can add to their notes here to help them differentiate between the different types of writing. Then after the timer goes off, they'll move to the narrative, then they'll move to the informational, and they'll keep these notes for future reference to help them be successful on Mastery Day. Because so many times I've asked students to write informational content, and they come to me with an argumentative essay. So I really want to be sure that they know that there's a difference so that they can be successful on Mastery Day. So yeah, so this is for the station. So station 1, read and take notes, and then they'll talk to their group, and then they'll switch to the next station. And as they're talking to their groups, they can add more notes to their note catcher. So after the stations, I want them to go back to their seat, and then I want them to reflect using the handout A. The next day we'll do the same warm-up, good news, and 3 vocabulary words. And then the objective for the day is to pick a content topic. And we're going to start by doing a brain barf on handout E. So here at the top, I just want them to brain barf about things that they care about. What would they rather be doing right now? Draw a picture, make a list, do a brainstorm, whatever. Then we're going to do a speed chat where I have kids either standing or sitting in 2 circles. So one inner circle, one outer circle. They're facing each other, and they're carrying around this note catcher. And I'm going to be writing or reading these questions to them as they talk to each other. So I'm going to give them like 1 to 2 minutes tops with a friend, and I'm going to ask them, what do you find yourself reading about in your free time? And they're going to talk to each other. And as they find out light bulbs or little nuggets of inspiration, I want them to write them down here on their note catcher. So there are 14 questions, so they'll switch partners for every question. They'll talk about it, and hopefully they will take really good notes here in the light bulbs. It does move quickly, but I really want them to focus on taking notes on light bulbs. It doesn't have to be like perfect sentences, just have them jot down a few good ideas for their paper or for their informational content. Then I want them to move the seats back to the original setup, and on these notes here, I want them to circle the stuff that they are the most excited about and they might want to report on. And then I want them to narrow it down to one topic and write their topic on a sticky note. And if they need more time, they can go home and think about a topic, but they have to come back with a topic tomorrow. I want them to put the notes that they used today in section 3. And then I want them to stick their sticky note to the whiteboard if they have written one. And then I want them to reflect, and I'll tell them to have a really good day. The next day we'll do the same warm-up, and some good news and some vocabulary. And the daily objective is to review how to find reliable sources, and they're going to create their own question using their content topic. And so if they want to write something about chicken nuggets, then their question needs to be related to chicken nuggets. But before we go into writing our question, I'm going to do a quick reliable sources review, which is found in handout L. So I'm going to hand this out to them, and I want them to individually circle true or false. And then as a class, we're going to go through each item and we're going to talk about why they are true or false. And if you're finding that the kids are actually way out in left field and they're not totally sure what you're talking about at all, you'll want to spend some more time on this. But if this is a review and you feel like they're doing really well, then go ahead and move on to the next part. So at this point, all of the kids should have sticky notes stuck to the board with their topic on them. And then I want all of the kids to go and look at what everybody has posted, and I'm gonna have them sit down and we'll have a quick discussion about what they like, what they are interested in, and what they want to know more about, just to give some affirmation to their ideas. And then we're gonna move on to writing questions, and I'm gonna tell them that the best questions do these 5 things. And then here I'm going to give them examples of really good essential questions here. And then I'm going to put this back on the board, and then I'm going to have this note at the bottom that says get your question checked off, and then post it to Padlet.com. So I'll send them a link to Padlet to where they can post their question so everybody else can see what everybody else is writing about. Then I'm going to have them reflect on how they're getting closer to Mastery Day and how they did on their norm, and then I'll tell them to have a really good day. And then the next day we'll do the same routine, warm up, good news, 3 vocabulary words, and then we're going to practice some thesis. Writing. So I'm going to give them this handout here that has different types of theses on it. Some are informational, some are argumentative, and I'm going to cut them out into little strips, and I'm going to have them work in partners, and I want the partners to organize these into argumentative theses and informational theses. And the sorting is the activity. The sorting is the whole point of this, because they're going to have to argue about why they're informational and why they're argumentative. And then after they have had a chance to sort them, I want them to find a different partnership, and I want them to explain to each other why they sorted the theses the way that they did. And then I want them to go back to their original seats, and we're going to go through all of these theses together, and I'm going to tell them why they're argumentative or why they're informational. And then before they leave, I want them to pick one argumentative thesis that we have talked about, and I want them to turn it into an informational one. And then I want them to pick an informational thesis, and I want them to turn it into an argumentative one. And then I'm going to have them turn that in so I can do a quick formative assessment to see if they're picking up what I'm trying to teach them. If they're not doing good theses, then we need to review it tomorrow too. Otherwise, I'm going to have them reflect on how they're getting closer to Mastery Day and how they did on their norm. And then I'm going to tell them to have a really good day. On the next day, we're going to do the same opening routines with the warm-up, good news, and vocab. The daily objective is to begin researching info that helps them answer their question. And they can do this two different ways. I'm going to show them two different methods for keeping track of their research. And the first method is this handout, which is handout F, A, B, C, D, E, F. And this is just a graphic organizer where they have a source that's helping them answer their question and information that helps them answer that question. So I think they need at least 2 sources for this, maybe 3. But they keep track of their source and the information here. I would tell them to write the information they're learning verbatim, just so they can have it handy. They can also use this handout digitally, so they can copy and paste things from the internet if you would like them to do that. If they like to do things the old school way, you can give them color-coded note cards. And on source 1, they write all of the information from source 1 on purple, all of the information from source 2 on green, all of the information from source 3 on yellow. And so they can pick one of those 2 methods, or they can do any sort of research method that works for them. And then I'm going to give them time to research. And I want to emphasize that they are gathering information that helps them answer the question. They're not trying to prove a thesis at this point. They're going to gather information, and then, based on their information, they are going to write a thesis. Then I'm going to have them reflect. I'm going to tell them to have a really good day. And then when we come back, we're going to do the same routine. So the warm-up, respond to informational content, do good news and 3 vocabulary words. And then the objective for the day is to continue researching and start organizing their information. So I'm going to just have research here and then a timer on the board. And then towards the end of class, I'm going to tell them to use 3 different colors and start color coding the information that they're finding into 3 different categories. And this is going to look totally different for each kid because they're going to be researching completely different topics. But in a way that makes sense to them, I want them to color code it and color code it into 3 different categories. And the categories are going to become the reasons or ideas that support their informational claim. And then I want them to name each of their categories, and then we'll use those notes, and we'll use that in a graphic organizer later. Then I'm going to tell them to reflect and to have a really good day. And then the next day, we're going to do the same opening routines. The objective for this day is to write their thesis and then organize their information into paragraphs or into reasons if they're not doing something written. And then I'm just going to remind them that we want informational theses. We do not want argumentative. Just a quick review of what we've talked about the day or 2 before. And then I'm going to hand them out worksheet. I'm going to give them handout I, which is a graphic organizer for their informational content. And no matter what type of thing they're creating, whether it's a 5-paragraph essay or a video or whatever, they're still going to have some sort of intro, some sort of claim, and reasons and a conclusion. So whatever they're doing, they're going to need this graphic organizer. So when they feel like they have researched enough information to make a claim, I want them to write their claim/thesis on worksheet I. And then I want them to check it off with me before they move forward, because if they write an argumentative thesis, they're going to do an entirely wrong project. So I want to make sure they have a good argumentative thesis first, and then I'm going to tell them to keep working at filling out this graphic organizer. And I can model it here for them. That's why I have that here on the slide if you want to use that. And then I'm going to tell them to reflect and to have a really good day. And the next day, we'll do the same warm-up, good news, and vocabulary words. And the objective for this day is to organize their information into paragraphs or reasons, whatever works best for them. And the whole day is to work and then reflect. And then when we come back, we'll do the warm-up and good news and vocabulary. And the objective is to make their content better by getting insights from friends. So we're going to do a quick friend feedback so that they can make it really good for Mastery Day. And then I'm going to tell them to get as close as they can to finishing their rough draft in so many minutes. They can type or write it. And then I want them to use the rubric and their checklist to grade themselves by finding evidence in their content. So they're going to use this rubric here, and they're going to say, okay, I'm at a proficient because blah, blah, blah. And they have to have evidence from their project that proves they are at a proficient. And it can just be a really quick summary of the evidence too. They don't have to write anything verbatim. And then they're going to switch and do the exact same thing with their friends' content. So they'll need a couple copies of this rubric. And then they're going to come together and compare notes. What evidence did they find? What are we missing? Where do we agree and disagree? What could be better? That kind of thing. So now that they know what they can do better, they're going to take the rest of the time to revise, and then they'll reflect. The next day, they're going to do another response, good news, vocabulary words, and then the objective is to finish their content creation and include their citations. And I'm going to have them polish, so they can take however many minutes to polish their content and get it to a point where they feel proud of it, add the citation or wherever at the bottom of their post or wherever it makes sense for them to add it. And then I want them to share it with me with this email. And I'm going to post it on an actual blog so that students can read each other's content or experience each other's content. But if you want to do it handwritten, that will work too. And then I want them to, I'm just going to remind them that if they haven't submitted their content, they have to do it for homework tonight and they have to share it with me for class tomorrow because we're going to do Mastery Day. Then I want them to reflect. And the next day is Mastery Day. It's going to be so fun. So you can do a warm-up if you want. If you don't have time, just skip it. Same with vocab. If you don't have time, just skip it. So the objective is to check out each other's posts. And I'm going to give them a link to the blog, and I want them to check out each other's posts, and I want them to fill out this note catcher as they are reading each other's posts. Then we're going to have a quick Socratic seminar where we talk about our essential questions and the insights and ahas, questions and qualms that they have with each other's content. And then the second half of this Socratic seminar is just about cultural beliefs and values, and then reflecting on the entire writing process. And then I want them to put that handout in section 3. And then they're going to do the final reflection, which is handout J, I believe, HIJ. Yeah, they're going to do the final reflection here. And if they need to, they can use their daily reflections as a reminder. And you can use the final reflections in their grading if you would like to. If you feel like you don't have time to do Mastery Day and Socratic seminars and the final reflection, just feel free to split that into 2 different days. But this shouldn't take too long because they're only reading 3 or experiencing 3 different types of content. But it should be really fun for everybody to just check everybody else's work out. So it should be a good time. So yeah, they'll do the final reflection, and then they'll put that final reflection into section 1. And then we're going to celebrate by adding an icon to the timeline. I hope this is a really good unit for you. I hope your students can create some really fun and exciting stuff. If you do a classroom blog, please share it with me at my email, smashcaketeaching@gmail.com, so I can see what your kids create. Thanks, everybody. Go smash it.